Black Panther has come and gone, the film was awesome, so let's go back to the beginning of the MCU and resume the countdown to Infinity War with the Incredible Hulk. And this time, I've actually got some help because Tyler Wolff is joining me in this video to give his thoughts on the Incredible Hulk momentarily. So the Incredible Hulk came out back in 2008 and it's the second film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it's of course the introduction to Bruce Banner / Hulk. A lot of people by this time knew who the Incredible Hulk was, they knew who Bruce Banner was, they knew the backstory, they did not want to see it again on the big screen. So to give everybody the basic gist of Banner's backstory, they put it all in the opening credits. The credits are going along and you see flashes of Banner's backstory. He was a scientist, he was exposed to some radiation, now he's the Incredible Hulk, he's on the run from Thunderbolt Ross. And the decision to put the backstory in the opening credits was a good thing, number one, because it doesn't bog the film down in an origin story that we already know, but it's kind of a bad thing as well because it made it kind of hard for me to get invested in the story and the characters. Especially the romance between Bruce Banner and Betty Ross, because every time Bruce Banner sees a picture of her or he sees her from afar, he's all really sad, and I just didn't really feel anything for the romance. But the other reason I didn't feel for the romance is because I pretty much almost couldn't stand Betty Ross. Liv Tyler is a very good actress. I've seen her be a very good actress in other films, but in this film I don't know what she was doing. She was doing the super generic voice, and every time she opened her mouth, I wanted to claw my eyes out. Oh, don't worry, we're gonna get away from them. You don't have to be afraid, Bruce. Yeah, she was almost unbearable, and I thought she was a terrible love interest. And that's the big issue with this film for me personally. I couldn't get invested into the story or the characters. Bruce Banner's trying to find the cure for his Hulkness, and he's on the run, he's running away from the government, and he's sending files to people, and there's some shootouts, there's some chase scenes. The shootouts, the chase scenes, the fight scenes are entertaining. Whenever the Hulk is destroying stuff and doing his Hulk smashing, it was entertaining to watch. Of course it was, it's the Hulk destroying stuff. But there just wasn't enough meaty story or compelling characters to back it up and give it that extra kick. Not to mention that the CGI really doesn't hold up. I know the film came out 10 years ago, but even 10 years ago, some of the CGI in some films was really awesome. But here, it looks like a video game at times. Another big issue with this film for me were the villains. I did not give a single crap about any of the antagonists in this film. You got Thunderbolt Ross and you got Tim Roth, whose character name I can't even remember. They're behind the scenes, they're all, yeah, we're gonna inject you with a serum and we're gonna make you whatever, a new super soldier, and I just didn't care about the snivelling behind the scenes stuff. And at the end of the film, Tim Roth goes to that guy and pretty much demands that he injects him with Bruce Banner's DNA to make him another big Incredible Hulk monster, and at that point he's just an addict who needs his fix and demands his fix, and it backfires because he becomes the Abomination. And there are some really cheesy lines in this film as well, like just before Tim Roth becomes the Abomination, that guy says to him, "It could turn you into an abomination." And just before that, when Tim Roth gets on the helicopter, the guy says, "How you feeling, man?" And he goes, "Like a monster." People actually wrote those lines, and people actually filmed those lines being spoken, and they made it into the final film, somehow. Overall, for me, The Incredible Hulk was okay. There were some good fight scenes with the Hulk, especially the last fight scene with the Abomination. Even though the CGI doesn't hold up, it was still entertaining. It's a decent popcorn film overall. It's got some entertaining parts, some good action scenes. Edward Norton was good as Bruce Banner, but Mark Ruffalo's better. It has its fun parts overall, but the lack of compelling story or characters, the terrible love interest, the crap villain, the CGI that doesn't hold up very well, and the smattering of cheesiness in there really bring the film down for me. I'm going to give The Incredible Hulk a 2.5 out of 5. But now I move over to Tyler Wolff, my special guest, for his take on The Incredible Hulk, so Tyler, take it away.
Hello to everyone who watches Jack's channel of stuff. My name is Tyler Wolff, and I'm here to let you know that The Incredible Hulk is no perfect movie. So for those who haven't seen or really remember that much about The Incredible Hulk, because in all honesty, it's actually been 10 years since I've seen this movie. It takes place several years after Banner has exposed himself to gamma rays. He's been on the run ever since then, trying to find a cure for his poisoning, all the while being pursued by General Thunderbolt Ross, played by William Hurt, and a Black Ops agent who is part of the same experimentational program as Banner was, played by Tim Roth. Louis Leterrier did such a great job directing this movie. His style feels fresh and unique compared to the Marvel movies that would follow after this. Mainly the fact that this story is mostly told through visual cues as opposed to dialogue. The most obvious one being that this is a really green movie. I'm not kidding, like the exotic locations that Bruce has to hide in, the color of the drink of a bottle factory that he works at, even his own bed sheets, they're all green. And it can be a little distracting if you pay close attention to stuff like that just as a casual fan, but I love the meaning behind that, the message that no matter what, Bruce can't escape his life as the Hulk and has to accept who he is as a person. That's pretty much the central theme of the movie, and it's explored quite a bit just for the use of visual cues such as like different colors in certain scenes, the positions of the camera, like using a wide shot to portray Bruce as a lonely individual, and just for the expressions and body language that Ed Norton portrays. It's also one of the most practical Marvel movies that I've ever seen. I mean, it is true, there's obviously a lot of CGI, but the fight scenes take place in real locations and utilize actual cars and props to destroy things. The fight at the university was filmed at the University of Toronto and the nearby Morningside Park. The climax on the streets was filmed at the Yonge Street in Toronto because the mayor at the time, Dave Miller, was such a big fan of the Hulk and he let them film there. And good thing that he did, because the action in this movie is, well, incredible. The actual real-life locations and props are integrated seamlessly with the CGI. The choreography is pretty brutal when it comes down to the Hulk and the Abomination's strength and the fact that they can use pretty much anything they want as a weapon. Now, some people's favorite fight scene is that climax on the streets, and it is really good, but for me, my favorite action set piece is actually the very first one in the factory, because for the majority of the fight, he's only a figure in the shadows, and when he's grabbing people and pulling them into the darkness, it makes him a lot more menacing, and when he finally reveals himself, holy shit, that was just awesome. Now, I like how Mark Ruffalo portrays the Hulk. He's a much more sociable character because the other Avengers and most of the main public have accepted him as a hero. They've seen him do really good things for people using his powers. But after seeing this movie, I actually do kind of prefer Ed Norton's portrayal of him as a tragic hero. As I mentioned before, he gives mainly a visual performance. Some of his best scenes are just him trying to find ways to suppress his powers scientifically or just observing other people from a distance. And just through his eyes, we can see that he wishes he had a normal life and that he wouldn't have to be a fugitive. He doesn't need dialogue to portray these really complex feelings about himself. And the other actors, they give fine performances, but they each have little flaws that prevent them from really giving a memorable performance and making their characters stand out. Like Liv Tyler, she has good chemistry with Norton, and I believe the relationship between Bruce Banner and Betty Ross. But Liv Tyler whispers almost all of her lines, and it felt really distracting. William Hurt is good at being a corrupt army general, but he's just a corrupt army general. That's about it. Oh, and Tim Blake Nelson in this movie. Wow. Tim Blake Nelson in this movie is a great example at how comic relief can just completely fail. He is way too over the top at being this kooky mad scientist person who has like big dreams but has little actual common sense, and it just felt really awkward. I know Tim Blake Nelson can be an over-the-top actor, but here it just didn't work. And the very last scene, just the last shot that he's in, is the most obvious, hey, I'm gonna be in the Hulk sequel. Eventually. Please. My main problem with the movie, though, is the third act feels very forced in Tim Roth's transition as the Abomination, and Bruce trying to see himself as a good person, as a hero. Because at the beginning of the movie, I thought Tim Roth did a really good job. He wasn't hunting down Banner just because he's a dick. He's hunting him down because he does think that the Hulk is an incredibly dangerous person. But once he becomes part of the experimental program, he starts to become the Abomination. It becomes more of him just trying to prove to the Hulk, hey, I'm stronger, more badass, and just more awesome than you are. And the complex and more human side of that character just felt lost. And the fact that he's pretty much just transitions as the Abomination in the third act kind of felt like an excuse just for the Hulk to fight a villain and just as an excuse to show him be an actual superhero. And I get why they did that. They wanted to show the side of the character that he had never thought of. He spends the whole movie thinking of himself as a bad person, and only now does he realize he can actually use his own curse as a good thing. I understand what they were going for, but it doesn't really change the fact that the transition of the villain from a normal human being to this creature still felt completely out of left field, and I felt like you could have done a much better job at transitioning from that. Or at the very least, you could have kept the Abomination's original motive of trying to take out the Hulk because he actually thought he was a threat. Even though it does have a messy third act, The Incredible Hulk is one of the more unique and mature Marvel movies that I've seen in a long time. The visual style feels very distinct. Ed Norton gives a surprisingly nuanced performance of a superhero character, and the action is just brutal and intense and fun to watch. And I didn't think I was going to enjoy this movie all that much just because I didn't remember a lot of it until having seen it yesterday, but I had a really good time with it, and I'm going to give The Incredible Hulk a 4 out of 5. Guys, thanks as always for watching, and thank you so much to Jack for inviting me to be in this collaboration review. I hope the rest of your series, your countdown to Infinity War, goes well. If you haven't already, well, chances are you probably already have, but if you haven't, be sure to subscribe to Jack. He's one of the coolest movie reviewers that I've seen in a long time. I love how just honest and direct his style of critiquing is. It's admirable, and you're completely fearless, man. I really appreciate that.
Thanks very much, Tyler, for being in the video. If you haven't subscribed to him yet, there's a link in the description. Go over, subscribe to him, tell him I sent you. And in the meantime, let me know what you think of The Incredible Hulk in the comments below. And if you want to see more of my stuff, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video.